Alrighty. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come here. Welcome to our Introduction to AI presentation by Miraculous Minds. Thank you. To talk a little bit about myself first, my name's Jacqueline Liu. I'm a tutor here at Miraculous Minds. You might have seen me around. So pretty much while I was trying to receive my BA in history with my minor in education, I actually took a class at UCI titled Educational Technology with Dr. Cheyenne Dorodi. And I even made my own learning game using RenP, and I realized that educational technology is something that is vastly underutilized in education. I feel like it's something that we don't talk about very often. It's kind of a taboo subject in classrooms. So I originally wanted to become a teacher, actually. I was going to get my master's in teaching from USC, an online program. But then after staying there for a little while and seeing how they do things and shadowing in the classroom, I realized this is not exactly for me. The learning's not as personalized. The teachers don't seem to be as understanding to their students. I mean, it's hard for teachers. They have a lot of students to manage. But I think the biggest offender to me was just the lack of technology use. They were very like, only pencils, only paper, nothing else kind of thing. And so because of that, I realized maybe ed tech is the way to go. So now I'm currently a master's student at Ball State University in Indiana, trying to get my master's in educational technology. So that's where I am right now. I'm also a bit of a learning center veteran. I've worked at many learning centers. I've worked at Kumon, I've worked at Mathnasium, I've worked at Huntington Learning Center, and I've also worked here. So over the past 4 to 5 years, I've just kind of been bouncing around trying to see which learning center is right for me. And in my opinion, the previous learning centers, what was different about Miraculous Minds compared to them was that this one embraced technology a lot more. The others are like very strict on like everything's pencil, everything's paper. And to me, that's very archaic. I feel like technology and education should not be considered mutually exclusive, and that they should be kind of utilized in tandem. So that's why I'm here. And so, yeah. So we are in the midst of a technological revolution. A lot of people say, oh, we learned about the Industrial Revolution in class, and we're like, yeah, that's a big thing that happened, but that's in the past. But in reality, we are still very much in a revolution. Maybe it's not an industrial revolution, but we are in a technological revolution. AI is constantly changing different aspects of our lives, regardless of our age, our background, our socioeconomic status, etc., which is why it's important to have these kinds of conversations. So I wanted to provide an example of that shows how large AI has become, and that's DeepSeek. And so DeepSeek is a Chinese AI chatbot that has taken the world by storm. Not only is it efficient and provides similar services to ChatGPT, but its training, the cost it took to train the AI, was actually very cost effective. It cost them a lot less than it does for us here to train ChatGPT. So a lot of people have been trying to find out exactly what are DeepSeek's secrets? How are they able to do this? And the fact that we've made so much progress in such little time simply goes to show how rapidly AI has been expanding on a social, technological, and economic basis. Who knows what innovations will be made in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? Oops. So before thinking about that, we have to go into the fundamentals. What exactly is AI? AI, also known as artificial intelligence, is a technology that requires computational analysis to perform tasks associated with human intelligence. In other words, it's like a computer that tries its hardest to mimic the human brain. It's often associated with algorithms, or a process or set of rules to be followed in problem solving, optimization, and deep in machine learning. Now, AI is incredibly complicated. It's very hard to break down. But the aspect of deep in machine learning, the two different kind of subsets of AI, are what I'm going to be delving more into here. Overall, there's no easy answer. People to this day still debate over whether or not certain things are AI. So there's no easy answer at the moment. So let's talk a little bit about deep versus machine learning. Machine learning is the one that we're all used to. It requires our inputs. It's dependent on human intervention. For example, chatbots, facial recognitions, even spam filtering in your emails. How does your email know what is spam and what's not? How to separate those two? That's technically seen as AI. Whenever you're done watching a YouTube video or a Netflix show and you see something like, oh, recommended, watch this, autoplay, stuff like that, those are all in a way manipulated by AI as well. So that's also an important thing to consider. Deep learning is very complicated. This one's the one that we're still continuing to explore. This one mimics human neural networks, but requires minimum to no human input. So this is an incredibly enigmatic kind of AI that we still don't know too much about. And an example of deep learning, one of the few examples we have, is Deep Blue, not to be confused with DeepSeek. Deep Blue is a machine that was able to teach itself and beat an expert at chess. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it. It was in the news for a little while, causing up a storm, people talking about AI taking over the world, all of that stuff. But that would be an example of deep learning. We're still studying it. Very little is known about it. So what exactly do I mean by algorithms and analyzing human language and stuff like that? Well, what I mean is that similar to the brain, it has its own thought process. It's similar to those yes and no flow charts that you guys might have seen around. So for example, I found this flow chart here. Should I say hi when I forget the person's name? And you answer simply yes or no to the prompt, and whatever answer you give, it leads you to a certain destination. So in this case, do you have time to flee? Yes, then you run. Or if you have time to flee, no. Okay, move on to the next step. Are you wearing sunglasses? So it's very much like building kind of different conditions on top of each other. So this is very similar to how AI works. In terms of probability, the AI will analyze something like, is this person who is, I don't know, a girl who's 8 years old, is she likely to go out and hunt for bears? Probably not. So the AI, when talking about something like that, will probably try to avoid that. That's what they mean by probability. And a big misconception about AI is that it's strictly just STEM-based or engineering-based. In reality, a lot of it is actually sociocultural as well. Understanding human thought, emotion, especially nowadays, a lot of AI has been trying to mimic emotion. Understanding kind of language, analyzing the language. And we'll do an example later that will further delve into this. But yeah, so it's not simply just an engineering thing. It's very much an integration of both STEM and humanities. So that's important to consider. So how is your child, or how does your child, if they're already using it, use AI in the first place? Well, it depends on the child. They could use it to generate images. I've seen them use them to try to write essays, as a shortcut, as a learning tool. And I want to emphasize here that using AI is not always a bad thing. Just because your student uses AI, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're using it for something that's malevolent or something that could harm them. Sometimes AI really could just be kind of a shortcut or a learning tool, like I said earlier. And they can help with optimizing the study process as well, really shortening that time. But oftentimes what I notice that students use AI for are things that they're the least passionate about. If somebody hates math, they're going to pull up ChatGPT to do their math for them. If somebody hates reading, they're going to have it read it out loud. So on the surface, this makes sense, but because our students are still so young, we want to make sure that they are able to do the fundamentals, because if they can't do the fundamentals, how are they going to know when ChatGPT or other AI is wrong? Because they are wrong sometimes. Writing, I think, is probably, out of all the students I've worked with, is probably the one people use AI the most for. students just do not like to write nowadays, especially with pen and paper. It's a very long menial task for them. So yeah, that's why I said AKA school. A lot of school stuff. Students will spend hours putting together their Canva collage or their Roblox edits, but they're not going to do anything when it comes to writing or like math or stuff like that. So when students use AI, it is important to check their work, but it's not a matter of just like seeing something and being like, oh, that's AI, cross it out. That's AI, redo the whole thing. I do still recommend that parents do look over their students' work, even if it's just a couple of minutes each assignment, just to make sure that everything looks clear. It's clear that your student came up with the idea, the words are their own. If your third grader is giving you something and it has the word rudimentary and superfluous and stuff like that in there, it's probably not them. So it is important to kind of make sure you check over their work. Is there anything that looks like this, something the student wouldn't write? In extreme cases, especially for younger students, it is okay to restrict AI sometimes. For example, Harvard, they have an AI chat that actually restricts how long you can talk to them. You can ask them a couple of questions, and then afterwards they go on like a 20 or 30 minute cool down, and you can't talk to them during that time. And I think having something like that for kids could also be helpful. Just kind of restricting, especially if they're going too far with it, okay, you can only use it for this much, you can only use it for these things, stuff like that. But again, it really does depend on the kid, if the kid really is using AI for, to benefit them, or if they aren't. But if it gets really extreme, then the best course of action would be to just restrict it. It's not recommended. I don't recommend it because AI is the future, and a lot of people in the workplace, in the workforce, are also using it. So preventing them from using it would prevent them from being able to kind of work on that skill. But if it does get really bad and it gets to the point where they can't make anything on their own, then restriction towards a certain age would be necessary. And restriction towards a certain age, the age also depends on the kid, and how you feel, your judgment of your kid, okay, do I think my kid's doing well right now? Do I think I should give them a couple more years? How long should I keep them off of this AI? Or when they use it, should I be by their side? Should I monitor them? That's an option as well. So before we do anything else, I wanted to do a little quick activity. So I wanted you guys on your iPads to open up ChatGPT. You don't have to be signed into anything. Actually, you shouldn't be signed into anything. So if there's an account on there, you should sign out. I just want to do a little activity. Wait till everyone's ready. Is everyone good? Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about a topic that you know very well, very well to the point where you're able to fact check what ChatGPT says to you. And I just want you to ask ChatGPT a standard question about this topic that you're very knowledgeable about. So let's say you know a lot about the American Revolution. You could just ask, hey, please give me a rundown of the American Revolution, or something like that, with a topic of your interest.
Go ahead and enter it.
Has everyone entered their prompts? Yeah? Alrighty. If you notice, well, actually, first of all, you could look at it and see how accurate it is, because they do have a disclaimer saying that ChatGPT can be inaccurate at times, which you can find under the search bar. But first, take a look at how accurate it is, and also notice the language, what kind of language they're using, how advanced, how educational is their language. So that's the first part of the activity. Second part of the activity, I want you to now ask ChatGPT to kind of ask them the same question, but to explain it as if you were 5 years old. And if you'll type it in and you see it, you'll notice that the results are pretty different. The language is going to be different. The way it tells you it's going to be different. Maybe some parts are a bit more simplistic and you're like, wait a sec, that's not how it really works. But that's just because it's explaining it to you like you're 5, right? So the point of this exercise is input is important. Whatever you put in is what you're going to get out, which is very similar to like coding, for example. Whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. So on that note, I wanted to talk a little bit about bias in AI. Again, like I said, the input will affect the output. And I want to show you guys a quick 13-second video of 2 cars just having the time of their lives. That 13-second video got 40,000 views.
What am I doing wrong? Why?
So this is the very famous 1974 psychological experiment by Loftus and Palmer, the car crash experiment. And pretty much what they did was that they pulled subjects aside, had them watch the video, and asked them different questions depending on the group. The first group was asked about how fast were the cars going when they smashed each other, when they collided each other, when they bumped each other. So each one of them got a different verb. And if you notice, each verb is associated with a certain type of impact. Smash is the biggest impact, and contacted is the softest. And as you can see from their results, the way that they were asked the question will affect their answer. Lower speeds for the smaller contact, yeah, and higher speeds for the bigger smashed. So AI is trying to imitate human brains, right? So they are very similar to this. Depending on how you're going to word your question, even if the video is the exact same and everybody watches the same thing, they're also going to respond differently according to what you say. So that's an important thing to consider when asking AI certain questions. You can ask them something like, why am I the greatest person in the universe? Even if you're not the greatest person in the universe, and they will respond as if you are the greatest person in the universe. So try to watch what you say, essentially. Oh, and talk to kids. And talk to them, why are you using it? How are you using it? When are you using it? If kids like to do one thing, it's be an expert at something. Even if you act clueless about, I don't know how this works, can you tell me? The kid will be like, all right, I'm going to tell you everything I do. And most of the time, if they feel like they're the expert, if they feel like they're the ones with the know-how, they're going to divulge everything because they want to be the expert. So talking to them about it is also very important as well. So we have 3 main problems, I guess, that we, 3 main action steps that we need to consider when incorporating AI into our educational lives. We need to understand the paradigm shift, understand possible risk, and understand Newport Mesa's, the school district's, way of handling AI. So the first one is the paradigm shift. And that is just accepting that our students are going to use AI whether we want them to or not. When we were younger and we were using laptops and phones in class, all the older people, all the adults, our parents are like, no computers, no laptops, no technology in class. But obviously we proved them wrong. Well, something similar is happening here. Our kids want to use AI. We're like, no, we don't do it. But this is just something that we're going to have to accept. Skills in the workforce today are very, very different. I used bellboys as an example. Bellboys are obsolete now because we have the buttons on the elevator. Well, certain jobs will also become obsolete in the future, and it's a good job, or it's our job, to make sure our kids understand that in the future, certain jobs they see around now might not be there anymore. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about Eric Schneider, who studies educational technology professor. He talks a little bit about how students' learning styles have changed. And it's very much immediate response, multimedia, active use. If they see something and they can't use it right away, if they see 2 + 2 and they're like, what am I going to do with 4? Then they're not going to want to learn it because they're like, there's nothing I can use this for. Back then, knowledge was kind of there for the sake of knowledge, for the sake of understanding. But nowadays, we're leaning a lot more towards practical use. So that's another thing to consider about how your kids learn. And solution 2 is understanding the risks. So similar to your kids will use AI, people will want to use the information online no matter what. Any kind of data they can get and sell to people, they will try. So something as simple as don't include your personal information. Email addresses, phone numbers, regular addresses, people's names, the school that you go to, not including things like that. Or deleting your cookies after you're done. Using an incognito tab whenever you open up an AI chatbot are all kind of they all go a very long way into kind of helping to ensure that your students don't end up getting into a little bit of a pickle. And if a student uses one type of AI or more, like there's also like Getliner, there's ChatGPT, of course, there's Claude, there's all kinds. You can also do research on the website. You can even have your kid sit down with you because AI is not always right and they don't always claim to be. Like I said, at the bottom, they talk about how they're like, oh, it's not always accurate. If I don't know, something happens and you end up in a legal situation, the website will not be liable for anything because even if you say, oh, well, you know, I did this because the AI said it was okay, ChatGPT will be like, nope, we said that it might not always be accurate. So it's always important to, you know, make sure that you understand, understand and do reading on those websites. I also included here, I circled by messaging ChatGPT, you agree to the terms and private policy. So that's something that you could also look at. It's very small at the bottom, and a lot of people gloss over it, but it's there. All of it's there if you want to take a look.
I had a question about that.
Of course.
Or do you want me to hold questions till the end?
Yeah, you can ask a question.
When you're using your own ChatGPT, like if you're subscribed,
Yeah.
you put in personal information, like does that get broadcast, like how can people access your personal information? For personal accounts, I think a lot of it depends on what kind of, because there are multiple echelons of accounts, like there's like the free version, and there's the premium version, and then there's like another higher version on there. I think actually based off of what I remember reading was the more, and this is just how economics work, the more you pay, the more they will actually protect your information. Okay.
Yeah, so they will actually be very careful with those, especially, which is why sometimes for certain students I do recommend making an account, because making an account does show ChatGPT that oh, you guys are invested in me. Okay, well then I'll do my best to protect you guys and stuff like that. So I think for subscriptions and stuff or accounts, it does become harder or they protect their data a lot more.
The reason why I ask is sometimes for menial tasks, I'll upload a complaint letter, but it has our names and stuff in it. So I just wonder if I'm using that to write a basic complaint letter, does it keep my information somewhere, or is that just in my account? It's so nebulous. It's hard.
Well, unfortunately, I can't really guarantee that the information will stay, because people nowadays can do all kinds of things. Right. Yeah. But I will say that
well, either just to be safe, like once you're done, you could also always try to, well, it's not a guarantee, but like you could always also delete the conversation that you had if you want. Or I think there's actually an option in the settings to clear the cache. And like that's another thing that you can do. But for the most part, I think the accounts on ChatGPT are pretty like self-contained, I think. So it's like you shouldn't have to worry about it too much.
And I use that as like a personal example, but even for the kids, like if they put their personal, I mean, you know, I'm going to tell them not to, as much as they can, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, probably I would just recommend deleting the chat afterwards, or when you're done, just kind of clearing everything out. Yeah. Alrighty, so the last thing is talking about what's happening in Newport Mesa. So, actually, I have some handouts for you guys. I'm just gonna give these to you. This is for you. Everything's rolling.
Thank you.
Of course. So this is accessible online, actually. It's not private. You just look it up and it's there. It's all of Newport Mesa's plans and recommendations about utilizing AI inside the classroom, inside their classrooms. So, as you can see, there are certain things that they're responding to, like the first finding, the second finding. As you keep going, you're actually going to see some recommendations as well. So, yeah, they do have, Orange County schools do have many resources for AI, but Orange County's not really doing anything about it. And luckily, Newport Mesa is actually very progressive about it. They're very much like, hey, we got to get up, we got to use AI for something. So you could look these up on your iPad if you want, but OCDE and CLAOC are two of the websites in which I believe Newport Mesa is collaborating with, or is kind of using as their like criteria for AI implementation in classrooms. So it's really good that they believe that there should be more AI policies in their technological plan and stuff like that. But as of now, they haven't really mentioned anything. But that will quickly change in the future. Let me see here. So yeah, if you look at some of their recommendations, I believe there is a part where they talk about implementing all of these in September of 2025, which is this year. So this upcoming school year, they're going to try to implement all of these in there. They do mention one type of AI. I believe it's called School Pilot AI, and I did research on it, and it doesn't seem to be completely developed yet. But the point is, Newport Mesa is going to try to implement AI as an educational chatbot into their schools. And they're also going to make mandated AI classes, like curriculum about how to use AI and technology too. So your kids might be taking those classes in the future. So one thing that's important to mention though is that this is the school district, not the schools. So some schools will have one thing, other schools will have another thing. It really just depends on the school that your students go to. So that's another thing to consider. They want to implement this, but whether or not Orange County will fund them, whether or not they'll have the resources for all the schools to have them, I mean, realistically, it's probably only going to be a couple. But that's just something important to consider. So these are some other examples. Updating student handbooks, training, teachers and staff, so they're also affected by this. Digital citizenship, ethical AI use, all of these things are going to be implemented into their curriculum. They want it to be. So these are some of the things that your students are going to be learning about.